Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CT Sports Talent Show. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the first episode of The Flex. And it's always great to be able to talk about, obviously, softball and everything with that. And might as well start out with the champs of the Class Double L last year, Fairfield Ludlow, who not only defeated a Southington team that was one of the best in the state, but kind of also upset as far as the winning streaks and everything that came with that. But, congratulations to Ludlow. And now beginning a new season. I'd like to introduce not one, but two guests with me. Rosanna Materi with me. She's an outfielder but plays multiple positions. She's a senior. Rosanna, say hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for this opportunity.
Appreciate you being able to come on. And next, I have the first year head coach, Adam Lapteri. Probably said that wrong. I apologize. Adam, I appreciate you being able to come on.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Adam, before we kind of go into obviously the upcoming season that we have, I kind of want to look at last year really quick because I mentioned to my partner during the broadcast how what you guys were able to do against Southington. I don't know if you scouted them and maybe found what very few weaknesses they had, but the bunts that you guys were able to place, I mean, you scored multiple runs without the ball even getting to the circle, right? And I mentioned during the broadcast how in 2015, the Kansas City Royals, they beat the Mets, a lot of it because they found out that Travis d'Arnaud had just a terrible year throwing the baseball. He couldn't throw anybody out. So they just kept running on him all day. So my question to you is, again, without revealing too much, how much scouting went into playing against Southington basically, and did you maybe unlock something into that game?
I can see Rosanna kind of saying there, a little smirk on her face because she knows the kind of work that we try to do in our program, just preparing on an everyday basis, let alone for a state championship game. I mean, I think part of it that goes into it is you played a team that's beaten you the last 2 years. 2 years before last year in the state finals, and then the year before that in the semifinals. So there's some level of familiarity there. So you're always kind of watching them from afar as they're going through their CCC schedule
Mhm.
and trying to keep an eye on, what they're doing with ultimately thinking that there's a very good chance that you're going to play them down the road. So, we had sent some of our coaches to a few of their games and tried to ascertain what we could on like they played Ridgefield in the semifinals right after we had beaten Newtown. And of course, Ridgefield is another FCIAC team. So that kind of gave us a good point of comparison because we had played Ridgefield. So you always try to think of things like that. Ridgefield's doing this. We know them. What are they trying to do against Southington? That
Mhm.
sort of thing. So we spent a long time really preparing information that we could get about their batters and how we might want to attack them and what they might be trying to do against our pitchers. And then also just kind of making sure that our defense was placed correctly and knowing that Southington was a team that also likes to play small ball and run quite a bit. So we thought, well, if we get a lead, especially if we get a multi-run lead, maybe we can take that away from them a little bit. And that was going to be helpful. But then I think the other part of it was, as you mentioned, a lot of the bunts, which is something we typically don't do at all. But we also felt like, maybe to beat a team like that, you got to beat them at their own game, kind of give it right back to them. And so we started working on our short game and our bunting actually right away at the beginning of the season. We just never deployed it until the end. But I don't think you can put something in like that 2 days before the finals and expect it to go well. So we
Right.
had been working on that the whole time. And then it was just more like exploiting holes. This was a spot that we felt like a good bunt could go down and maybe it would cause some confusion. And,
Mhm.
really to the kids' credit, it's all great in theory, but then you have to go execute it. And they did a great job.
Well, you're right, coach. I think a lot of it has to go with it. It sounds great on paper, and I've heard this from many coaches. This all sounds awesome if this all can go right. But like you said, the bunting aspect really not worked on too much, maybe not needed as much. But then if you have to deploy it, it's up to the players to be able to execute. And I'll go to Rosanna next. Talk to me about the confidence that you guys had, A, going into that game, but also kind of, and I'm sure things were discussed as far as the former coach who's now at Albertus with Lou Brunso, and obviously Adam being on the staff and such having the confidence to be like, okay, we're going to do something we haven't really done much, but they believe in us. So now we just have to do our job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think a lot of the confidence stemmed from buying in early. I mean, as Coach Adam said, we started a lot of the bunts really early on in the season, and I think that really got us conditioned to it. And we knew exactly where we wanted to bunt, how we wanted to execute. And also, one thing is that I think a lot of the confidence stemmed from our relationships. We
Mhm.
were really like close knit team. We all knew we wanted to do it for each other. Like, I just remember walking into the dugout and feeling there was no way we were gonna not win almost. We just felt so into it. So we bought in, we knew exactly how we wanted it to go, and it just worked out because of our practice.
I'll go to coach next with this, Coach La Liberty with me. First year head coach with Ludlow. Now, going into this season, obviously, I know there were a couple players that graduated from Ludlow. And again, I've always kind of believed in high school, like no matter what the sport, you've got the blue blood programs, right? You think about softball since we're talking about softball. Southington, Massig, Ludlow, back in my neck of the woods in the NVL, Woodland, Seymour, Oxford's had some very good years the last couple years. So coming into this year, there's always going to be new challenges as far as players kind of having maybe trying new positions or maybe just kind of getting more opportunities, right, with the graduation. So, how was it as far as kind of in the off seasons or maybe in the summers that you kept track with your players as now we're into the 2024 spring preseason? I know your first scrimmage is against Massac tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, Fairfield, obviously very large town, two high schools, both programs very good in their own right.
Mhm.
Large Little League program that's been, successful over the years. So as you mentioned, you're going to continuously get players that are very invested in the sport of softball. So, our players work pretty hard in the off season. A lot of them play travel, some of them don't, but there is off season conditioning that they take part in the fall, and then in the winter they're hitting 2 or 3 times a week. They're lifting. We play in a winter league in Danbury, in the
Mhm.
Danbury Dome, and they participate in that. We put about 10 games there. So they're constantly, working and also working together. I think that's another part of it, as Rosanna said, building that confidence. Especially we had any number of players graduate, then you bring new players into the fold, and you want to start building that camaraderie amongst the people on the team. And so
Mhm.
that always, I think goes a long way. And, we're really approaching this season in that, I think it's nice to remember the past, but I don't want to dwell on it too much either. I think, what we learned is our culture is very important in our program, and that's something we want to carry. But I don't want to do a disservice to this year's team by constantly comparing them to teams of the past either. So I think it's important for this team to find their own path and to make their own identity along the way.
Mhm.
And it just wouldn't be fair to them to continuously compare them to our teams that we've had over the last few years. We have to make our own way, and it could be a different style, people in different positions, as you already mentioned. But the kids are great. They really put in the work. They believe in what we're doing. They're very coachable. They like to have high standards, and they really respond to the demands that we ask of them. And so we're excited for the opportunity ahead.
I'll go to Rosanna next, and I kind of want to piggyback off what Coach Liberty said because he talked about the coaching aspect and you guys, you young ladies, being prepared and ready for the moment. I got to tell you, pressure situations, I couldn't handle a lot of stuff that you guys do. So kudos to you and credit to what you're able to do. I mean, the championship game alone against Southington, I was getting nervous and I wasn't even playing. I was just calling the game in the press box, which was really nice, by the way. But I digress. So the point that I have to, the question I have for you is, how are you and the rest of your teammates able to handle the pressure? Because it's not even the championship game, right? Like I know the goal is win a title, but the FCIAC is a gauntlet. I've said this for when I've called games for football, for basketball, when I saw Ludlow play against Wilby, right? I mean, you're coming out, you know, black eye, broken nose, just trying to get through the FCIAC. It's tough. But if you're able to survive, then it's like, okay, we're in the state playoffs and maybe it's a little bit easier, quote unquote. What says you?
Well, so for us to really handle that pressure, one thing that we always do is we always have open communication. I know Coach Adam specifically, he always tells us, I always have an open door. Like if we just want to talk or, always reach out to me, text me. So if there's absolutely anything, big or small, softball or not, we always have an open flow of communication. And I think that really translates onto the field. And
Mhm.
so that if any one of us are feeling that pressure, then we just let it out to each other. And we're really just like a big team on support. So we love having that support system and being there for each other.
I'll stick with Rosanna here. My next question would be as far as coming into this season, right? Because I know anytime you win a title, I never won one, so you guys had me beat there. So with you being able to win one, now it's like, okay, let's try to, and especially with you being a senior, you want to not only send the rest of the seniors, because how many seniors are on the team this year?
This year we have four.
Four. Okay. So that you, is that counting you as well? Okay, so for seniors, you want to send and finish your careers, hopefully having another opportunity to compete for a championship and get two, right? But you
Yeah.
also want to be able to lay the foundation for the classes that are following years.
Mhm.
So how are you able to kind of condense things and not kind of look too far down the road and try to keep things like I just said, tomorrow you're playing Massac, regardless preseason or not, it's going to be tough and you got to prepare for the games that you have coming up. So how do you do that?
I think we honestly just take it day by day. As we were talking about before, I know we started the bunting early on in the season, but really we focus most of our specifics day to day. And
Mhm.
so, especially here now, I think for the future, we're just getting into a good routine and understanding just certain things on, okay, first we're going to start base running here this day, or we're going to focus on specific situational things. So I think that by working one thing at a time, it just gets groundwork done, and it'll really, because we have a really large underclassmen group, and I think that seeing them work these specifics, day by day, is just gonna help the future and just help it all grow together.
I'll go to Coach Adam next. I always like to talk to softball coaches as far as the evolution of the game because I see it from the baseball perspective of 10, 15 years ago, probably even sooner than that, the whole launch angle, right? And I think you know what I'm talking about, where you're dropping the barrel, basically dropping a drive, trying to drive the ball far. I remember talking with the Woodland coach a couple of years ago, Coach Luddy, who was telling me how because she had, and I kind of was like, okay, she told me that she had big players, but when I stepped on the field, when they played against Oxford at DeLuca Field a couple years ago, these were big young women. They were big, they were strong, and I could see what she was talking about as far as the strength. They're looking to drive the ball. Coming into this year, is that kind of where the lineup may be a little bit more mixed? Do you have a lot of power hitters? Is it focused on driving the ball? What exactly do you have without revealing too much?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is making a lot of sense. I started coaching softball in 2005, and so you see a lot of evolution of the game. We were playing shorts when I first started coaching, and they had like aluminum bats, and the pitching circle was at 40 feet, and that made a big difference. I mean, the scores were like 1-0 in 15 innings because nobody could
Yeah,
score.
yeah.
And now you see higher scores. Like we don't use international tiebreaker rules. You don't need to run around second in the eighth inning anymore. Like we can figure the game out without that sort of thing. And it's all kind of like act and react. So there were years where there were a lot of home runs, and so the pitchers would adapt and then started throwing more drop balls. Let's get ground balls, right? And then people started to adapt to that. So now it's let's switch to the rise ball, and it's back and forth and back and forth. And so now launch angle is one of the things that we have that's going on. And so you have to play into that, right? So we have players like Rosanna who are more power based hitters that can handle that sort of thing. But I also think, only in my, personal view, you're also kind of being a little short sighted if you don't realize that you have different players that can do different things. And the more tools that you can have in your tool chest, the better off, you're going to be. So we have players that can do that, but we
Mhm.
also have players that can play small game. I mean, last year we had some lefties, we had some slappers that caused a lot of confusion on the base pass, but the ball in play, run, use your speed. I actually think it's a good thing to have a lineup like we're going to put out there that can do a little bit of everything. I think the biggest thing when it comes to generating offense, though, is you can't strike out a lot. You can't strike out a lot. The more you can put the ball in play, especially at the high school level,
Mhm.
more balls in play lead to more mistakes by the other team. And I thought that was one of the things that made us successful last year. We only struck out 5 times in the state finals against a pitcher like that. That's a pretty good performance, and I think that really helped us.
And I want to go to Rosanna next, and I couldn't agree with you more. I wish that my Yankee teams were like that because the last 5 years, all they do is strike out, and I've been screaming, and that's why Kansas City I go back to 2015 with Kansas City because, and even 2014, even though they lost to the Giants, they put the ball in play. What did you guys do against Southington? Well, striking out does nothing except adding to the K total for the pitcher on the mound or in softball in the circle. So you put the ball in play, force them to make plays, and if they do, you tip your cap. If they don't, then you keep attacking them, right? And with Rosanna, I want to stay with you here. The power aspect is obviously part of your game, but for you, because as I know with any high school athlete, it's you want to go to your strength, but also you also have other ways to be able to drive in runs, right? You can do more than just hitting home runs. How hard is it for you to kind of not get so eager and trying to drop in, trying to go for that 3-run bomb, but rather just keeping the line moving, put the ball in play, and even if you get out, if you move runners across, and I'm sure Adam would agree with me on this, that that's still that's a quality at bat. Maybe not in baseball nowadays, but I think in softball that's still considered a quality at bat.
Yeah, I relying on the power hitting, I feel like is really tempting, but trying to put your team before yourself really overrides that in the sense that I'm always willing to bunt, always willing to move the runner over because I know that by the end of the game, what matters is, how our team did as a whole instead of me individually. So I'm
Mm.
always willing to expand my horizons. I'm always willing to bunt. I train it at practice too. So anything for the team, really, it's always team before me.
I'll go to Adam next. Now, as we look at kind of, and you mentioned how the mound, I know you could probably tell me the year because I remember I was talking to the law coach before they played Massick, and she told me that same thing about how the mound was pushed back because it was so close and there were so many strikeouts and like 1-0, 2-0 games, right? Has there been any other changes that myself or others need to be aware coming into this softball season as far as the game? Has there been any or no?
Apologize. Yeah, there's one that's pretty notable. It has to do with that pitcher dragging the foot, and so that leaping rule, which they've now removed. I know that there was a pitcher, I believe in Class L, that there was a lot of controversy around that last year, and so that's a rule they've changed. So they're actually allowing that, and so we'll see how much that affects the game. It's certainly there's a lot of argument to be made that's going to give the pitcher more drive and that it may increase their miles per hour. I don't know that it'll have a huge bearing this year, but I think down the line it will because younger pitchers now are going to be trained that that's okay. And so again, that could be the next, one of the next things that's part of the evolution of the game. So I think that could be something that we see, impact what's going on.
And I'll stay with Adam here too, really quick. As far as looking at your team from a macro standpoint, right? If you were an opposing coach, right? If you're on the Massick staff, if you're on Wilton or whatever, right? Talk to me about kind of if you were to look at the team from afar, what would you say the outlook of this team could potentially be? If you let's say you weren't the head coach, you were just looking at it from my perspective, what would you say?
I think that there's been a lot of dialogue, at least that I've heard and read a little bit about, this is really the chance for us to grab the FCIAC. Like Ludlow's, going to be down. They've kind of had a stranglehold on the conference for the last 3 years. I think we're 44-1 or something in the last 3 years in the conference, and have won the conference tournament the last 3 years. And so all the seniors have gone, and it's time to grab it. One of my thoughts is like, there's a lot of pride in that program though. And so my thinking if I'm a coach from afar is number one, like, let's try to get them early while they're trying to scramble around and figure out what they're doing and who's going where, because once they figure it out, they're probably going to be they're going to be a tough out for us. So I think that's one thing. And, the other part is like, we get everybody's best shot. And I love that. I just absolutely love that. I mean, I'll go scout other games and I'm like, it is so quiet here. Like these two, and then when these teams come and play us, they're like screaming and yelling and like, I just love that. So I'm anticipating more of that. Like, I just think that's going to be one of the approaches. Like, okay, we're going to come in there with that same energy that we always do, but let's see if their new players can handle that kind of environment.
I'll go to Rosanna next, and I don't know how much I know because again, I with myself broadcasting with football and basketball both for the girls and the boys. I noticed there's a lot more chatter with the boys side as far as the smack talk before the game. I've seen it, I've witnessed it. When it comes to the girls side and mainly with softball because that's what we're talking about, is there a lot of confrontation? Is there a lot of talk about that? I mean, I'm sure you hear the chatter from wherever and whenever because everybody's got phones and social media and such. And, if you can share, do you hear that? And if you do, what's the conversations like with your teammates?
Honestly, the past 4 years I've been here, I haven't heard too much about it. Sort of just hear things through the grapevine, nothing has come up, but I do know that a lot of teams are coming for us. I do know that a lot of teams really want to take us down this year, but we really tune it out, honestly. I mean, I haven't heard from any teammates and I haven't really heard from any outside sources, any banter or nothing. So
I'll stay with Rosanna here. As far as the outlook for your season coming up, What are some, because I know you were first team all FCIAC last year. So again, I know your goal probably is to replicate that again and maybe even do better as far as what you had both on the field, defensively, and so on. What are some of the goals that you have for yourself coming into this season?
Goals for myself, I'd say honestly improving my infield. I mean,
Okay.
because I might be the third baseman this year, so continuing to expand that, I guess, and also like you said, all FCX, seeing what else I can add to that, and yeah, really just going for that.
I'll go to Coach Adam next. And before I let you go, I really appreciate you both coming out. Been awesome conversations. Um, with what we look at with the FCIAC and the amount of talent that's in the league, right? I think it's one of the best, conferences, leagues, whatever you want to call it, in the state because there's a number like we talk about Ludlow, right? I mean, Division one, two, three, no matter where you play, and even the players that end up not playing at the next level are just as good, but maybe they just don't want to play because of whatever reason. So when you see all this talent, right, and obviously you being a head coach first year with Ludlow, right, but you've been a part of the staff for a while, um, how I mean, I don't want to say have you pinched yourself, but have you thought like, wow, I have the best seat, right? You have like people tell me I have the chair, right? Because I have the play-by-play chair. Never really thought about that, but now I see what they're saying. But you have the equivalent of that to, I mean, I don't know if you sit on a bucket, I don't know if you stand, I don't know what you do. Hopefully you do one of those. But have you realized that yet?
I mean, it's pretty awesome to watch these guys operate. I try to sit, but I end up standing and sitting and because I can't sit for that long. I got to get up and move around.
I don't
I get
blame you.
excitable sometimes. I think we all do, but it's pretty awesome sometimes. I mean, there are points, and it's hard because you go into a day-to-day grind, right? So you're always working on something. There's something that you're trying to do. You're trying to improve. You don't want to be stagnant, but there were times last year. There've been times already this year, right? You just sit back and you watch the kids and you watch them working, and
Hmm.
you also just watch how they're interacting with each other and you see how much they really care.
Hmm.
And there were some plays that we made on defense that we turned a double play in the state finals last year. It was a 1-6-3 double play that we work on literally every day, and it never came up the whole season. That was the first time that ball came up, and we turned it, and we turned it beautifully, and all you can do is just sit there and go, that's awesome, because that is what we do every day. And you guys just went, and it's just fun to watch.
Hmm.
But then you also get the chatter, them cheering. I was the bench coach last year, and there were like times where I'm gonna turn around, I'm like, I can't even talk right now because you guys are so loud, you're in my ears. And I just love it. I just love it because it makes it a really special place. It's a special program, really, to be around, and to
Hmm.
have that around you in your atmosphere. There are some days where you just kind of sit back and you're like, this is really lucky to be, in this program.
I'll stay with Adam here. One more question for you. Obviously, with you having the head coaching position, there's a little more responsibility than being the bench coach, right? Be the assistant coach, wherever it may be. Do you feel like just like how the players are going to have to learn you as a head coach, you're going to have to do the same thing now with kind of not to say learning on the job, right? Because you had a great mentor who was beside you and Lou, who I said is now at Albertus doing great things there. But do you feel like, there's going to be a learning curve for you, right? Just like the new players who will be having opportunities where they're going to have to learn the varsity game and whatever way that they are, you in the same way are going to have to learn, okay, this is how every game you're going to be learning at the head coaching position.
I mean, there's partially part of that. I mean, I think part of it is me kind of developing relationships with some of the other head coaches and things that we're going to play. I
Mhm.
very fortunately came to this part of Connecticut after spending a long time in Rhode Island. Actually, had my own program there for a long time, and we were a state championship level program. I had won 4 of them, so I feel pretty good about stepping into the head coaching chair because it's something that I've done
Right.
for a long time, at a fairly good clip. Obviously a little bit of a smaller state, but likewise successful program. And I think one of the things I'm hoping to bring to this team is being one of those coaches that has had, a state championship, and
Mhm.
then knowing what that's like the year afterwards, trying to deal with the pressures that can bring.
Mhm.
Sometimes you lose players, sometimes you come back with the same team, but it's always its own kind of challenge. I'm hoping to bring that perspective. So, there is that. I mean, that's to me the biggest, piece of pressure coming in. Like, Lou has gone off to Albertus. He's gone riding into the sunset on the top, at the top, and now here I am, and it's up to me and the kids that are still here in the program. Like,
Yeah.
can we just try to keep it going? And you can measure that in championships or not, but for me, part of it is like just making sure we're maintaining the culture of the program and playing at the highest level that we can for what we have.
I wish I knew about the Rhode Island part because I would have made it seem like you were like a rookie who's never coached before. My bad.
Oh, we can just let everyone else believe that, and then I'll just kind of stand over there at third base and pretend like I haven't done anything before. That's fine
Yeah,
too.
just sit back and go. All right,
Yeah,
good job, good job. Just keep going, just keep moving the arm, right? But hey, I really appreciate you both coming on, Rosanna. Best of luck this season, and hopefully, maybe again, I could see you guys down the road at some point in late May, June.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us.
Adam, I really appreciate you coming on. Great conversation, and it was awesome to be able to talk with you. I remember after the game last year, you and I chatted, for a little bit. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. So I appreciate you being able to make this whole thing, work.
yeah, I think it's great what you're doing with the highlighting different things. Like, I coach girls basketball Wilton too, and remember running into you at Mohegan Sun a couple years ago when we had our little miracle run to the finals.
Yep.
And I just think it's great what the state is doing through some of the media, really highlighting a lot of our female sports, especially that may sometimes go flying under the radar, because these are they're incredible athletes, and they deserve the opportunity to share their experiences too.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much, guys. I'll wrap things up on the CT Sports Talent Show, The Flex. Until next time, stay safe. Everybody stay interconnected. Talent. I'm enjoying finding them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.